From world number 140 to one win away from an Olympic champion, inside Alex Eala's wildest 2 weeks in tennis. She rolled her ankle in the middle of a packed stadium, and for a few seconds nobody knew if her tournament, maybe even her season, was over. The trainer sprinted onto the court. The match froze, and somewhere in that crowd, thousands of people who had flown, driven, and crossed an ocean to watch her play sat in complete silence, waiting to find out if what they just saw was nothing or something much worse. She got back up, and what she did over the next hour is the reason people are now calling this the most electric run women's tennis has produced from an underdog in years. But here's the part that makes this whole story almost impossible to believe. This wasn't even the hardest thing she'd done that month, because tomorrow, she walks onto that same court to face a former Olympic gold medalist, in a match that, as of right now, nobody can predict. Not the bookmakers, not the analysts, not even the players themselves. So stick around, because by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly how a player nobody outside hardcore tennis circles had heard of a year ago ended up carrying an entire country's flags into a stadium in Canada. Before we get into it, if underdog stories like this one are your thing, hit subscribe now, because this is exactly the kind of story we cover here, and there's a lot more coming. Let's start at the beginning, because you genuinely need the full picture to understand how unlikely this run is. Her name is Alexandra Eala. Everyone just calls her Alex. She's 21 years old, from the Philippines, and for most of her career she was the only player from her entire country on the professional tour, training since childhood at the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain, a long way from home. Before last year, she wasn't a name casual tennis fans knew. Heading into March of 2025, she'd played 14 tour-level matches in her career and won only 2 of them. Ranked 140th in the world. Not a rising star yet. Just a promising junior trying to find her footing among the professionals. Then Miami happened. She entered the 2025 Miami Open on a wild card, the kind of invitation that usually means a quiet first-round exit and a flight home. Instead, she beat 2017 French Open champion Jelena Ostapenko. Then she beat the reigning Australian Open champion Madison Keys, her first ever win over a top 10 player. Then, in the quarterfinals, in front of a stunned Hard Rock Stadium crowd, she beat 5-time Grand Slam champion Iga Swiatek, the world's second-ranked player, in straight sets. She became the first Filipina in history to reach a WTA 1000 semifinal, and remember, this was a player who had won 2 tour matches total before that fortnight. She eventually lost a brutal 3-setter to Jessica Pegula, saving a match point along the way before finally falling short. But the tennis world had officially been put on notice. That should have been the peak of the story. It wasn't even close. Over the following months, Eala kept climbing, kept beating ranked opponents, kept adding to a resume that eventually included wins over 6 different top 10 players in a single season. And then, this summer, she walked into the Mubadala Citi DC Open in Washington. In her very first 2 matches, she beat Olympic gold medalist Qinwen Zheng and the tournament's defending champion, Leylah Fernandez. Then she went through the draw's top 3 seeds, one after another, finishing with a rain-delayed final against world number 3 Jessica Pegula, the very player who had ended her Miami dream months earlier. This time, Eala lost the first set, then dug in, winning the final 2 sets 6-4 and 6-0 to close it out. Her first ever WTA Tour title. The first Filipina in history to win one. Her ranking rocketed to a career-high number 20 in the world. Now here's the detail that changes everything about what happened next. She didn't get a break. She barely had a full day. Within about 24 hours of lifting that trophy in Washington, she was on a plane, landing in Toronto for the National Bank Open, one of the biggest tournaments on the entire tennis calendar, with a body that had just played a title-winning final and a target on her back that had grown enormously overnight. And before she'd even played a single point in Toronto, the tournament had already sold out one of its night sessions specifically because of her. Filipino flags began filling entire sections of the stadium, the kind of scene that's become increasingly common wherever she plays, but was reaching new heights in Canada specifically because of the size of the Filipino diaspora community there. This wasn't hype manufactured by a marketing department. This was a community that had found, in one player, something worth showing up for in numbers. She didn't play singles right away. First came doubles, a wild-card pairing with 7-time Grand Slam singles champion Venus Williams, a partnership the two had started earlier in the summer on grass. Picture that for a second. A 21-year-old who just won her first tour title now sharing a doubles court with one of the greatest players who has ever lived. Someone she has openly said she considers a source of inspiration and lessons every time they share the court. The pairing lost their opening match to the experienced team of Miyu Kato and Ludmila Samsonova, straight sets, ending the doubles run early. But it added real minutes, real physical strain, onto a body that had already given everything it had in Washington. Then came the singles draw, and this is where the tension really starts building. With a first-round bye as the 25th seed, her first real test came against American Alycia Parks. Not a clean formality. Parks took the second set, forcing a decider, and Eala had to grind her way through a third-set battle to close it out, becoming, in the process, the first Filipino player, male or female, to ever win a main draw match at that tournament. The stadium, already primed for her, got louder with every point. And then came the match that turned this from an inspiring story into something genuinely dramatic. Her next opponent was Caty McNally, an unseeded American who'd arrived in Toronto in terrifying form, having just knocked out the reigning Wimbledon champion in a stunning comeback of her own. Eala took the first set comfortably, 6-3. Everything looked under control. Then, in the second set, with Eala serving at a lead, she planted awkwardly on a forehand and rolled her right ankle. The point stopped. She called for the physio. A medical timeout followed right there on court, in front of a stadium that had shown up specifically to watch her, now sitting in tense silence while her foot was wrapped. She came back out to play, but the injury had clearly rattled her rhythm, and McNally, sensing the opening, won 3 straight games to level the match and force a deciding set. This is the exact moment that separates a talented young player from a genuine competitor. A third set on a freshly rolled ankle after a title-winning tournament, after a transatlantic-style turnaround, after extra minutes on court in doubles alongside a legend, against an opponent who had all the momentum in the world. Instead of folding, Eala found something. She broke early, held her nerve, and closed out the match, 6-3, 5-7, 6-4, in a battle that lasted 2 hours and 39 minutes. Afterward, she summed it up simply, saying she thought she'd survive that one. It was her 7th consecutive win, the longest winning streak of her career, stitched together across 2 different tournaments and 2 different countries. After the match, she reflected on what the crowd had meant to her that night, describing how touched she was that someone in the stands had told her they wished they were Filipino for the evening, comparing it to the feeling of losing yourself completely in a concert crowd that doesn't share your background but somehow makes you feel like it does. It's a small moment, but it tells you everything about what's actually happening here. This isn't just a fan base anymore. It's become something closer to a movement that follows her from city to city. So where does that leave things right now? Waiting in the next round is a name that instantly raises the stakes to a completely different level. Belinda Bencic, a former champion of this exact tournament, a Swiss veteran with nothing left to prove, and, crucially, an Olympic gold medalist, having won singles gold and doubles silver at the Tokyo Games 5 years ago. This isn't a rising player facing another rising player. This is a battle-hardened champion stepping directly into the path of someone who survived a physical scare less than 48 hours earlier. And Bencic herself isn't walking in fresh either. She needed 3 hours and 24 minutes to get past a stubborn opponent of her own just to reach this same round, describing it afterward as an incredibly tough battle that tested her patience before she found her rhythm. This will be the very first time these 2 players have ever faced each other at tour level. No history, no head-to-head, nothing to lean on except whatever each of them has left in the tank after the 2 most physically demanding weeks of their season. As of right now, this match hasn't been played yet. It's scheduled for the 4th round in Toronto, and the outcome genuinely isn't decided. Betting markets have it split almost exactly down the middle, which tells you everything about how unpredictable this one really is. Think about everything that had to happen for this single match to even exist. A wildcard entry into Miami over a year ago from a player who'd won 2 tour matches in her career. A stunned crowd watching a teenager take down a 5-time Grand Slam champion. A brutal near-miss against Pegula that could have ended the story right there. Months of quietly climbing the rankings, picking up win after win against players who should have been out of reach. A title in Washington that finally turned potential into silverware. A same-day flight into another country, another tournament, another spotlight. A doubles partnership with a living legend that added strain instead of rest. A 3-set survival match to even get a foothold in Toronto. And then an ankle rolling in real time in front of a sold-out crowd in a match that could have ended the entire run right there. Every single time this story had a clean exit available, an easy point to lose, a moment where folding would have been completely understandable, she found another gear instead. That doesn't guarantee anything about what happens against an Olympic champion. Sport doesn't work that way, and anyone who tells you they know the outcome in advance is guessing. But it's exactly why an entire diaspora keeps buying tickets before a single point has been played, and exactly why this has become one of the storylines of the entire tennis season. What we do know is this. A player who was ranked 140th in the world 18 months ago, with almost nothing on her resume beyond potential, now sits one match away from a career-defining result against a Tokyo Olympic gold medalist, carrying a stadium's worth of belief on a still tender ankle. Whatever happens next, it won't be quiet, and it won't be easy. And that's exactly why it's worth watching. If you want to see how this one plays out, or you just want more stories like this one, stick around and subscribe because there's a lot more where this came from.